The quieter you become, the louder your truth speaks. Spicy ladies, this message isn't built for virality. It wasn't crafted to grab attention. It was channeled to offer remembrance. And if you're here still listening, something in you already knows. This is for the woman who walks differently. The one who listens more than she speaks. Who feels the room before entering it. Who retreats not out of fear, but out of fierce divine self-trust. You are not misunderstood. You are just ahead of your time. You don't explain your absence. You don't broadcast your power. You don't seek permission to take up quiet space because deep down you know your value isn't measured in volume, but in vibration. You are a Sigma woman not by trend, not by theory, but by nature. And this message is your mirror to remind you of everything you already know but may have forgotten in the chaos. But before we go further, if this message already stirs something ancient in you, subscribe to Wisdom Ways. This isn't a channel, it's a sanctuary for rare ones like you. There's a moment, quiet but defining, when a woman stops trying to explain herself. It's not loud. It doesn't look like rebellion. It might even go unnoticed by the world outside, but inside something permanent shifts. She realizes she can say no. Not out of anger, not to provoke, but to preserve, to protect her energy, her essence, her center. This is the sacred refusal, and it is the foundation of every Sigma woman's inner empire. You've said no before, but this one is different. It's not about defiance. It's about clarity. You're not rejecting others. You're reclaiming yourself. From childhood, we are conditioned to equate goodness with compliance. A good girl says yes. She smiles, nods, accommodates. She makes others comfortable, even if it costs her comfort. But you felt the tension in that script. You noticed the cracks early, the lies hiding in the language of should. You felt your truth tightening in your chest every time you said yes when your body screamed no. And at some point you stopped. Stopped explaining why you didn't want to go. Stopped apologizing for not replying. Stopped twisting yourself into a shape others could accept. You began to refuse, not from rebellion, but from reverence. Here's the thing no one tells you. Sacred refusal is the beginning of sacred creation. When you say no to what drains you, you say yes to what aligns. When you stop chasing noise, you start hearing your soul. When you let go of what's expected, you make space for what's true. Sigma women understand this deeply, intuitively, non-negotiably. Because your life isn't about being liked. It's about being lit from within. You don't seek validation. You seek vibration. You know when something doesn't feel right and you walk away, not with fanfare, not with rage, but with grace. Because your refusal is a prayer, a statement of self-respect, a boundary drawn in breath, not bricks. Right now, if you are still watching, I hope this video can help you. Your comments motivate me so much, so I can make more videos which you like. So hit that subscribe button and leave me a message. Let's continue. Of course, they don't get it. People will call you cold, arrogant, distant, difficult. Because when a woman stops explaining herself, she becomes unreadable. And unreadable women scare people who rely on scripts. But you don't exist to be legible. You exist to be authentic. You don't speak in bullet points. You speak in frequency. And only those tuned to your channel will ever hear you. So let them wonder why you didn't reply. Let them feel uneasy when you don't over-explain. Let them mislabel you. You've outgrown their understanding, and that is a sacred thing. Your refusal isn't a wall. It's a doorway to a life built on intention, to friendships rooted in mutual respect, to work that doesn't drain your spirit, to moments that begin with peace, not panic. And all of that starts with a single, soft, powerful word. No, not with bitterness, not with force, but with holy, untouchable calm. You're not a rebel. You're a rememberer. You're not fighting the world. You're just finally listening to yourself. This is your power, not in the rejection, but in the realignment. Every time you say no to the noise, you say yes to the sacred. And in that yes, you return to yourself fully, quietly, unapologetically. You've spent a lifetime being told that silence means absence, but you've learned through trial, heartbreak, and your own holy solitude that silence is where the real messages arrive. You're not quiet because you lack something to say. You're quiet because you know not everything deserves to be said. There's a deep economy to your energy. You don't waste it. You don't scatter it. You listen first. You read the undercurrent. You sense the energy before words fill the room. This isn't passivity. This is power. Most people live at the surface of things. They feel silence because it unnerves them. They rush to respond because they fear being seen as unsure. But you sit with it. You let silence stretch, expand, open. Because you know silence is not the absence of noise. It's the presence of awareness. It's where intuition sharpens, where truth rises, where clarity is born. You've built a life that runs on this sacred quiet. It's not something you advertise. It's something you embody. And this quiet, it has protected you more times than you can count. It's kept you from wrong paths, wrong people, wrong moments. It has guided you out of chaos, out of obligation, out of pretending. When others pushed for urgency, you paused. When they demanded reaction, you waited. When they labeled you distant, you were simply discerning because you understand. Not every conversation needs your voice. Not every conflict deserves your fire. Not every presence requires your presence. Your silence isn't emptiness. It's a gate, and only those attuned to your soul's frequency can cross it. There's a quiet resistance in you that unnerves people because you can disappear from a room without ever standing up. You can remove your energy and the whole dynamic shifts. That's not attitude, that's awareness. You don't win by arguing. You win by exiting. You don't win by defending. You win by detaching. Silence has become your sacred compass. It shows you what no one says. It shows you what they truly fear. It reveals the unsaid motives, the invisible tension, the real story behind the words. And so, you no longer interrupt your peace to explain your decisions. You no longer narrate your process. You simply move. When you walk away, they don't hear a door slam. They just feel the temperature shift. That is the legacy of your silence. They don't realize how much you've seen, how much you've sensed because you never needed to prove that you knew. And here's the truth that scares the world. A woman who owns her silence is a woman who cannot be manipulated. You're not hooked by the bait of drama. You're not pulled by urgency. You don't respond to guilt trips or forced closeness. You've learned how to pause, to breathe, to not engage until it feels true. Because you are not afraid of waiting. You are not afraid of empty space. You know that silence is not passive, it's strategic. While others fill every void with noise, you sit in stillness, gathering your power, watching it grow in the quiet. Let them misread your silence as indifference. Let them call you cold. Only you know the fire you carry in stillness. Only you know what it costs to stay calm in chaos. You are not uninterested. You are unedited. You are not disconnected. You are deeply, deliberately rooted in yourself. And this silence, it isn't armor. It's elegance, it's edge, it's signal. It tells the world you don't owe them access. You don't owe them your energy, your thoughts, your time. You will speak when it is real. And when you do, your words land with precision because you've learned. It's not the loudest voice in the room that leads. It's the voice that waits, listens, and then speaks truth without trembling. You don't need to perform. You don't need to compete. You don't need to prove. You already know who you are, and you're willing to wait in silence until the rest of the world remembers. You feel things in layers. Your emotions don't sit on the surface like most people's. They move through your nervous system like weather, quiet, profound, ancient. And because of that, you've learned something many never will. You are responsible for your own emotional ecosystem. You stopped waiting for someone to regulate you, to soothe you, to decode you. Not because you don't deserve support, but because you realize support begins with self-understanding. You hold your pain like ceremony. You honor your needs in private, not because they're shameful, but because they're sacred. You don't hand your heart over to anyone who knocks. You let them earn the key, not just enter because they showed up. You've become emotionally sovereign, which means this. You no longer let other people's chaos govern your peace. You don't absorb their moods, manage their wounds, or shrink for their comfort. You can sit with someone's sadness without drowning in it. You can love someone deeply without losing yourself in the process. That's not cold. That's clarity. The world tells women that love must be total sacrifice. That presence means merging. That empathy must become erosion. But you've rewritten that script. You've learned how to care without collapsing, how to support without self-abandonment, how to listen without leaking energy. And now you can feel your feelings fully without apology, without making them someone else's responsibility, without disguising them for convenience. Because emotional sovereignty isn't about numbness. It's about knowing when something is yours and when it's not. It's about knowing the difference between holding space and being consumed. You don't chase closure. You give it to yourself. You don't beg for clarity. You become clarity. You've learned to sit in the stillness of your heartbreak and whisper, "This too is mine and I can carry it." You've cried in silence, not out of weakness, but because your spirit is strong enough to make grief a guest, not a ghost. You've walked away from people who weren't wrong, but simply wrong for your nervous system. You've said no to connections that drained you, even if they looked perfect on paper, because your nervous system is your oracle now. You trust your body more than their words. You trust your energy more than their effort. And that changes everything. It means you don't perform peace, you protect it. You don't broadcast boundaries, you live them. It means you walk into rooms and no longer adapt to fit. You watch, you feel, you choose, and if it's not aligned, you leave. You leave without slamming doors. You leave without writing essays. You leave because your energy says, "This isn't mine." And here's the part they never teach you. True strength is knowing when to stay and when to stay with yourself instead. You become a woman who doesn't outsource her intuition, who doesn't run her emotions through other people's filters, who doesn't need to be understood to feel valid. You've stopped asking the world to meet you in your depth because you've met yourself there. And now when someone says you're too sensitive, you smile because you know sensitivity is your radar, not your floor. It's how you read the invisible. It's how you feel the shift before it happens. It's how you survive in a world that numbs itself. You are not emotionally fragile. You are emotionally fluent. And you've stopped translating your depth for those who refuse to feel. Now you speak to those who recognize the language of resonance, who feel you before you speak, who don't need the whole story to understand the whole soul. That is your field now. That is your frequency. That is your power. You are a woman who belongs deeply to herself. And that is the rarest kind of freedom there is. There's a kind of strength they never write songs about. It doesn't walk into the room demanding recognition. It doesn't flex. It doesn't shout. It doesn't pose. It carries bags no one sees. It holds others up while quietly falling apart. It never asks for applause because its reward is peace, not praise. This is the strength you've lived. This is the strength no one celebrates because they don't know how to see it. You are the invisible backbone. You are the one people come to when they need calm, need clarity, need grounding, because they know, even if they can't name it, that you carry something ancient. They call you strong after the storm passes, but you were strong long before that. In the quiet decisions you made to stay calm. In the times you swallowed your own chaos to keep others steady. In the moments you showed up. Not because you had to, but because your spirit wouldn't let you turn away. Your strength has never been about performance. It's been about presence. You are the calm in the middle of everyone else's panic. The eye of the hurricane. The one who sees the moving parts and never loses the thread. And yet they don't see what it costs. They don't notice the silence you retreat to afterward, the sleep you lose, the energy you drain just by absorbing, managing, holding. You've spent so long being the one who holds it together that even your tears look like control. But here's what matters now. You no longer need to prove your strength because you've lived it every single day. In every silent sacrifice, in every decision to keep going when you were empty, in every "I'm fine" you said not because you were, but because someone else needed you to be. You have nothing to prove anymore. You are no longer interested in being someone's safe place if it means abandoning your own. You're no longer willing to be the container for everyone else's mess while yours sits unopened. You now ask the question you used to avoid. Who holds me? Because strength, real strength, isn't being everyone's anchor. It's knowing when to dock and rest. It's knowing when to let go. You don't have to be the backbone of things that break you. You don't have to stay solid for people who never ask how you're holding up. You don't have to keep proving your value by how much you endure. Your softness doesn't make you less powerful. It makes you more whole. And now you redefine strength. It's the strength to say no, to cancel plans, to take naps, to cry, to walk away from dynamics where you're only needed when you're useful. It's the strength to be human, flawed, tired, still figuring it out. It's the strength to be seen without armor, to be loved in your vulnerable moments, not just your functional ones. The world taught you that strength meant endurance, but you've learned it's about alignment. And when your soul and your choices align, you don't have to carry everything anymore. You only carry what's yours. You are no longer the container for broken systems. You are no longer the translator for people who refuse to hear you. You are no longer the emotional crutch for those unwilling to stand. You are a woman who walks with power, but not the kind that needs a spotlight. The kind that reshapes rooms without speaking. The kind that anchors others in storms. The kind that knows her worth, even when no one is watching. So, if you've ever felt like your strength wasn't visible enough, trust this. The ones who truly see you already know. And those who don't, they were never meant to witness something this rare. Let your strength be quiet. Let it be soft. Let it be sacred. It's enough. You are enough. You grew up in a world that worships movement, where worth is tied to output, where stillness is treated like stagnation, where rest is a reward you must earn by exhausting yourself first. But you saw through the illusion. You noticed how the ones who moved the fastest were also the ones most disconnected from themselves. You noticed how the most praised were also the most burned out. You saw how busy became a badge, but no one ever felt truly alive. And so you stepped back, not because you couldn't keep up, but because you chose not to race toward nothing. You made a quiet, radical decision to rest, to pause, to slow down, to listen inward instead of reacting outward. And in a world addicted to acceleration, that choice makes you a revolutionary. Rest is not a lack of ambition. It's a declaration of self-worth. It's saying, I am not a machine. It's saying, I deserve to exist outside of utility. You learn to rest without guilt, to rest not as a reward, but as a rhythm. You stopped treating rest like a luxury and began honoring it as a necessity, like breath, like silence, like water. There were times, of course, when you questioned it, when the world made you feel lazy for pausing, when people mistook your slowing down for giving up. But over time, you saw the truth. Rest isn't stepping back. It's returning to presence, to clarity, to alignment. Because from that space of stillness, your real power rises. Not the frantic kind, not the scattered kind, but the steady, focused, soul-led kind. The kind of power that doesn't just react, it chooses. That doesn't chase, it attracts. That doesn't impress, it impacts. You no longer fill your schedule to feel safe. You no longer say yes because you fear being forgotten. You no longer hustle for validation. Instead, you rest because it keeps you honest. It keeps you whole. And in that wholeness, your creativity returns. Your sensitivity sharpens. Your body speaks. Your soul whispers. Because when you stop drowning in the noise, you start remembering your essence. This rest is not about laziness. It's about listening to your nervous system, to your seasons, to your sacred internal yes and no. You know now that honoring your need to pause is not selfish. It's responsible. It's how you preserve your energy for what actually matters. And maybe some don't understand. Maybe they still call you inconsistent. Maybe they still measure worth by momentum. Let them. They don't see what you're protecting. They don't feel what you're conserving. They don't know what it takes to hold your depth in a shallow world, but you do. And you've realized you don't need to be available 24/7. You don't need to attend every call, reply to every message, say yes to every ask. You are not here to be constantly accessible. You are here to be authentically present when it feels aligned. Your rest makes you more intentional, more potent, more powerful. Because when you rest, you don't just recharge, you reclaim. You reclaim your boundaries, your intuition, your capacity to move from truth, not urgency. So now, when the world moves faster, you move deeper. While they hustle, you heal. While they burn out, you build roots. This is your rebellion. This is your rhythm. And from this place, you don't just survive. You lead without burnout, without noise, without guilt, only grace, only ease, only sovereignty. You've always felt it, haven't you? That slight delay when someone looks at you and can't quite name what they're sensing. That subtle discomfort in their eyes, not because you said something wrong, but because you didn't say anything at all. You've watched conversations shift when you walk in, watched people fumble to place you, to read you, to box you in. But no box fits you. No label holds. You are not meant to be decoded by everyone. They don't understand you, and that's okay. You've stopped trying to be understood. You've stopped translating your stillness into palatable pieces. You've stopped diluting your depth to avoid discomfort because now you see it clearly. The misunderstanding is a filter, a spiritual sorting system, a divine veil that protects you from those who were never meant to sit at your table. You used to take it personally. You used to wonder if something was wrong with you. Too much, too quiet, too distant, too intense. But with time, you learned you are not too much. They are simply tuned to a different frequency. And you were not born to lower yours to match theirs. You were born to hold yours gently, firmly, unapologetically. They don't understand why you vanish without drama. Why you speak in observations instead of opinions. Why your presence feels like silence but stirs something ancient. They don't see the way you scan a room, not for attention, but for energy. They don't realize that your pauses are full of knowing, that your distance is full of discernment. Because you don't enter to be seen. You enter to feel. You don't engage to be liked. You engage when it's real. And when it's not, you disappear. Not to punish, not to prove anything, but because your soul refuses to fake alignment. They won't understand that, and you no longer need them to. Your path is not for crowds. Your message is not for noise. Your energy is not for mass consumption. You are here for the few, the ones who feel what you don't say, the ones who hear the signal behind your silence, the ones who don't need proof to trust your presence, because the ones who are meant for you won't need instructions. They'll simply recognize you. They'll see your depth and breathe easier, not harder. They'll feel your stillness and exhale, not flinch. They won't fill the silence. You'll share it, and that's how you'll know. So let them misunderstand. Let them project. Let them call your intuition aloof, your boundaries cold, your solitude sad. You know better now. You are not lonely. You are selective. You are not standoffish. You are sovereign. You are not mysterious. You are unavailable to anything untrue. You don't crave the spotlight. You crave safety, sanctuary, soul-level resonance. And that's rarer than anyone will admit. So rare most people have never felt it. So when they can't recognize it in you, they reject it. But that's not your failure. That's their limitation. And it's not your job to explain your spirit to those committed to misunderstanding it. It's your job to honor it, protect it, build a life that supports it. So now when the misunderstanding comes, you no longer shrink. You no longer shapeshift. You simply nod inward and move on. You move where the signal leads. You speak when it's sacred. You stay when it's safe. You leave when it's loud. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to remember yourself completely. And those who are meant for you, they won't need subtitles. They'll speak soul just like you do. Not all walls are built from fear. Not all boundaries are made of iron. Some are woven from breath, from self-respect, from silence that loves you back. You've spent years learning this, that a boundary doesn't have to feel like a door slammed shut. It can feel like sunlight filtering through closed curtains. Still warm, still here, but defined. Your boundaries have softened, not because they've weakened, but because you've strengthened. You no longer draw lines out of anger. You draw them out of reverence for your time, for your energy, for your nervous system, for the sacred ground of your inner world. There was a time when you either overgave or disappeared. You stretched yourself until you snapped. You allowed access until you didn't recognize your own space anymore. But now you know. You don't have to exile everyone to feel safe. You don't have to isolate to protect yourself. You just have to choose clarity over confusion, discernment over guilt, self-love over people-pleasing. You've learned how to say no without venom, how to exit without drama, how to stay without betraying yourself. Your boundaries no longer need explanation. They are felt. They are lived. They are energetic, not argumentative. And the most beautiful part, the right people don't just accept them. They respect them. They mirror them. They feel safe in them because your boundaries don't reject, they reflect. They say, this is how I love myself. This is how I want to be loved. This is where I begin and where you end. And that's not distance. That's dignity. You've stopped letting others chip away at you through small, harmless requests. You've stopped abandoning yourself in subtle ways just to maintain peace. Because now you know peace that costs you your inner clarity isn't peace. You know how to let someone close without losing shape. How to be intimate without absorbing weight. How to open your heart without erasing your outline. And that is mastery. You walk into rooms with soft eyes and clear lines. You let your no be a whisper, not a weapon. You no longer fear being called difficult or closed off because now you realize you're not hard to love. You're just no longer available to love that's hard on you. Your boundaries are your rhythm, the pulse of your self-respect, the subtle architecture of your peace. They hold your silence, your softness, your freedom to choose presence, not performance. And they don't need to be loud. They don't need to be posted. They just need to be lived day by day, breath by breath. Some won't like it. Some will call it selfish. Some will say you've changed, but those who truly see you will feel the invitation hidden within. Come as you are, but meet me where I meet myself. So you keep choosing your center. You keep letting your no echo with kindness. You keep holding space for yourself the way no one ever did for you. Because every soft boundary you draw isn't a rejection of others. It's a return to you. And in that return, you stop burning out. You stop explaining. You start glowing unapologetically, unbothered, unmoved by guilt. You don't guard your energy with sharp edges anymore. You surround it with light. And only those who come with open hearts can step inside. They told you time was running out, that you were behind, that life is a race, and you're too slow, too reflective, too inward. But here's what they never understood. You were never behind. You were becoming. The timeline they gave you was too linear for a soul like yours, too shallow, too hurried, too scripted. You were never meant to sprint towards someone else's milestones. You were meant to listen for your own inner rhythm and move with it, not against it. Because time isn't your enemy. It's your mirror. It reveals what's ready inside you when it's ready. Not when the world says it should be. You've bloomed slowly, and that's sacred. You've unfolded in seasons, not deadlines. You've said yes late, but honestly. You've said no often, but cleanly. And now you see you didn't miss the moment. You became the moment. While others rushed to arrive, you were learning how to be present. While they chased milestones, you built meaning. While they collected experiences, you cultivated awareness. You stopped measuring your life by how much you've done and started asking, does this feel true? You know now speed doesn't equal success. Urgency doesn't equal clarity. And being early means nothing if it's not aligned. You stopped needing to be ahead because you saw what most people miss. Growth isn't about when, it's about who. Who are you when you get there? Who are you while you're waiting? Who are you when no one's watching? That's the real timeline. And you've lived it through every delayed decision, every quiet pause, every slow rebuild. Your pace isn't lazy. It's literate. It reads the truth before moving. It senses the shift before acting. It doesn't rush clarity because it knows clarity blooms in stillness. You no longer panic when others move faster. You no longer spiral when someone else seems ahead. You honor your own becoming, your own speed, your own sacred unfolding. Because some souls weren't made to bloom in spring. Some souls need winter first, to go deep, to break roots, to unlearn. And now you emerge from the soil on your own terms. Not because they called you, but because you heard yourself. You rise slowly and surely. You speak less but truer. You take up space with stillness. And when people ask why you're not where they are, you smile because you know you are exactly where you're meant to be. Not late, not lost, just on a different map. A deeper one, a quieter one, a real one. You are not behind. You are aligned. And everything that's meant for you, every love, every moment, every opening will find you on that path. Not because you forced it, but because you became ready. You no longer ask, why is it taking so long? You ask, is this right for who I'm becoming? That shift, that's power, that's peace, that's the kind of timing that can't be taught. Only trusted. And you trust now yourself, your process, your pace. Because you were never here to rush. You were here to remember, to root, to rise softly, honestly, fully in your time, in your way, as only a Sigma woman can. They told you you're too sensitive, too emotional, too intense, too deep, too much. They said it with a smile, with a sigh, with a joke, but it always meant the same thing. You make me uncomfortable with how much you feel. And for a while, you believed them. You tried to be less. You tried to shrink your feeling, mute your intuition, silence the part of you that notices everything. But here's what no one told you. You were never too much. The world was simply too numb. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. It's your finest instrument. It's how you read between the lines, how you feel what's unspoken, how you know things before they're said. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. While others speak loudly, you listen for vibration. While others plan, you sense. While others chase surface, you drop straight into essence. You walk into rooms and pick up on tension no one names. You see behind masks. You hear meaning inside pauses. You feel discomfort buried beneath smiles. This isn't overthinking. It's overfeeling. And it's a gift. You experience the world in high definition. You love harder. You hurt deeper. You pause longer. You need more silence. Not because you're fragile, but because the noise actually penetrates. You're not dramatic. You just don't live on autopilot. You feel things all the way through, and now you no longer apologize for that because you've seen what numbness costs. You've watched people ignore their own intuition until it becomes illness. You've seen what happens when we trade feeling for fitting in. So no, you won't deaden your soul to make others more comfortable. You won't desensitize your heart just to appear more stable. You won't shrink to become digestible because your sensitivity is your compass. It tells you where something's off. It tells you when someone's lying. It tells you when your body needs rest, when your spirit needs space, when your boundaries are being pushed. You trust it now, even when it makes things harder, even when it means walking away, even when no one else sees what you do because you've learned. Sensitivity isn't about tears. It's about truth. It's about the capacity to hold nuance, to live in complexity, to stay awake. You no longer explain it. You protect it. You no longer internalize others' discomfort as your flaw. You let it be theirs because you know being highly sensitive in a desensitized world is an act of courage. And it's also an act of service because you show others what it means to feel, to listen, to not bulldoze through life numbly, to actually be alive. You don't want a life that's manageable. You want one that's meaningful. And for that, you're willing to feel everything. You've stopped seeing yourself as fragile. You see now that it takes immense strength to be this open, this raw, this intuitive, this receptive. It takes strength to sit with pain instead of running from it. To tell the truth when it's easier to lie. To honor your emotions when the world tells you to toughen up. You no longer hide behind logic. You no longer weaponize detachment. You let yourself feel. And in that feeling, you connect to a deeper kind of knowing. The kind that can't be found in books or algorithms, only in the soft, aching center of being alive. So yes, you are sensitive, deeply, beautifully, powerfully. You feel everything, and that is your superpower. Not because it makes life easy, but because it makes life real, and you wouldn't trade that for anything. There's a quiet moment that changes everything. It doesn't come with fireworks, no big announcement, no dramatic cut off, just a breath, a stillness, a soft yes to yourself. That's how it begins. The sacred art of choosing yourself softly. For years, you were trained to choose others first, to anticipate needs, to carry weight that wasn't yours, to make yourself smaller so someone else could feel big, to earn love by proving your usefulness. And every time you did that, a small part of you whispered, there's more than this. But that whisper got buried beneath roles, beneath expectations, beneath the fear of being called selfish, until one day you couldn't betray yourself again, not without losing something vital. And in that moment, you didn't yell, you didn't fight, you didn't burn it all down. You simply chose yourself gently, deliberately, without guilt. You chose rest instead of proving, space instead of chasing, silence instead of explaining. And that choice, though quiet, shifted your entire axis. Because choosing yourself isn't loud. It doesn't always look like saying no to others. Sometimes it's just saying yes to your peace, yes to your rhythm, yes to your values, yes to your own damn breath. It's noticing when something feels off and stepping back without a 10-slide justification. It's leaving the conversation that drains you without making a scene. It's canceling the plan and not calling yourself lazy. It's staying in bed on a Sunday morning and not needing to earn it. It's learning that every time you choose yourself with softness, you're not rejecting others. You're returning home. You've redefined what it means to be strong. Not the kind of strong that barrels through exhaustion. The kind that listens inward and honors what she hears. You don't need to wait until you break. You don't need to collapse to earn rest. You no longer need pain as permission. You choose yourself early, quietly, as an act of wisdom, not drama. And that is radical because the world taught you to measure your worth in sacrifice, to prove your value by how little of yourself you needed, to earn approval by disappearing at just the right angle, but you've stopped vanishing. You've started becoming. You've decided you're not too much. You're not a burden. You don't need fixing. You just need space to be you without apology. Now you protect that space with grace, with softness, with unwavering love. You don't need to defend it. It defends itself because it's built on truth. And truth doesn't need to yell. So you choose yourself softly. You pour into yourself without drama. You take breaks before burnout. You stay loyal to your boundaries even when no one else sees them. You live by inner cues now. You move when you're ready. You speak when you mean it. You rest when you're tired. And that doesn't make you difficult. It makes you sovereign. Because when a woman learns to choose herself without guilt, the world can no longer use guilt to control her. You've become untouchable, not because you've hardened, but because you've softened so fully into your own presence. Nothing outside you can define you. You no longer look outward for cues. You no longer wait for permission. You no longer justify what brings you peace. You simply choose, and then you stay with yourself fully, freely. Finally, there's a silence you no longer fear. A stillness that used to feel like exile now feels like a sanctuary. You've been alone, not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally, energetically. You've walked through seasons where no one quite saw you, where you had to hold your own heart with both hands because no one else knew how. And for a long time you wondered, am I too different? Too distant? Too much for closeness? Or too little for connection? But the truth has finally arrived quietly and clearly. Your solitude was never punishment. It was preparation. You weren't avoiding the world. You were building your inner one. You weren't isolating. You were returning. Because there is a version of alone that isn't empty. It's holy. A version where you sit with yourself in full presence. Where you're not rushing to distract. Not desperate to escape. Not measuring your value by how many people text you back. Just you. Fully witnessed by you. This isn't loneliness. It's sovereignty. You no longer chase company out of fear. You no longer fill the silence with noise. You no longer equate attention with intimacy. You've come to know the richness of your own company, the rhythm of your own moods, the depth of your own thoughts when no one's watching. And in that knowing, you've discovered something rare. You are whole. Not because someone said so, not because you read it in a book, but because you felt it on a Tuesday night when no one called and you didn't mind. You lit a candle. You played music only you love. You made tea and wrote in your journal not to perform, not to post, but to connect with the only voice that matters, your own. This isn't a phase. It's a foundation. Now, when someone enters your space, they're not filling a void. They're being invited into something already complete. And if they can't meet you there, you no longer shrink to bridge the gap. You've worked too hard to build this inner home, to plant this stillness, to soften the walls and fill it with beauty, breath, and peace. Your solitude is your temple, not because it closes others out, but because it keeps you in touch, in tune, in truth. You no longer fear being misunderstood in your aloneness because you understand yourself. You've held your sadness without needing rescue. You've celebrated your wins without witnesses. You've stopped needing the world to clap. You started clapping for your own quiet growth. And that is sacred. You move through life now with the calm of someone who knows you are not missing out. You are tuning in. You are not incomplete. You are intact. So you sit with yourself with your tea, with your slow breath, with your layered feelings, with your real self, unfiltered, unmasked, unhurried. And in that sitting, you realize you're not waiting for someone to arrive. You're not waiting for someone to finally see you. You've already arrived. You've already seen yourself. And from that place, you now choose people not out of need, but out of resonance. Not because you fear being alone, but because you cherish it too much to share it with just anyone. Let them say you're distant. Let them call you hard to reach. Let them misread your solitude as sadness. You know better now. You are not unavailable. You are just no longer open to energy that doesn't feel like home. You don't need constant closeness. You need clean presence. And when that's not available, you return to your temple, to your peace, to yourself. Because some of us weren't meant to live in crowds. We were meant to walk with our own rhythm, to echo with silence, to bloom in privacy. You're not alone. You're aligned. And that is everything. There was a time when you waited for someone to notice you, to see the real you behind the quiet, to choose you out of a sea of noise and distraction and convenience. And they didn't. Not because you weren't worthy, but because they weren't ready. Still, you stayed soft. Still, you kept showing up with open hands and guarded hope. Still, you made space. Still, you waited for the mirror that could reflect your depth. But something in you shifted, not in bitterness, but in deep, grounded clarity. You realized you no longer need to be chosen because you finally learned how to choose yourself. And when that choice came, it wasn't loud. It didn't look like defiance. It wasn't some viral self-love declaration. It was quiet, intentional, unshakable. It looked like turning down an invitation that felt heavy, like not chasing someone who didn't choose you clearly, like deleting the message you wrote at midnight because your peace mattered more than closure. It looked like keeping your own rhythm, even when it made others uncomfortable, like saying yes to your solitude without shame, like whispering enough to the habits, relationships, and patterns that kept you deluded. And in that moment, you became sovereign, not independent in a performative way, not guarded or jaded, but whole. You weren't waiting for rescue. You weren't proving your worth. You weren't asking for a seat at a table that never truly saw you. You built your own table of stillness, of truth, of self-belonging. And now you don't beg to be chosen. You invite alignment. You don't prove. You vibrate. You don't perform. You exist fully. Because a woman who has chosen herself softly cannot be shaken by rejection, cannot be lured by breadcrumbs, cannot be dimmed by absence. You know what's yours will feel like peace, not confusion. It will expand you, not contract you. It will feel like recognition, not effort. So you no longer chase. You call with your presence, with your stillness, with the quiet certainty that says, I am already home. You may join me if you arrive whole. But I no longer abandon myself to meet others in half light. Your choice is not against anyone. It's for you, for the life that reflects your depth, for the pace that honors your rhythm, for the people who meet you in your light without asking you to dim. You've stopped explaining your path. Stop justifying your peace. Stop second-guessing your knowing. You've chosen yourself softly. Every morning you breathe slowly before you move. Every night you protect your boundaries like prayer. Every decision that says, I trust myself more than I trust their approval. This is the soft revolution. No shouting, no revenge, no dramatics, just a woman who walks with grace because she no longer walks away from herself. She walks with herself. And that is the rarest, realest love story of all. If you've listened this far, I trust something in you remembers. Not a lesson, not a quote, but a truth that was already yours, buried beneath expectation, noise, and trying too hard to be understood. You didn't need this video to fix you. You just needed someone to speak your language. And maybe that's what this space is for. So to every spicy lady still here, still soft, still sovereign, still searching, but less frantically than before, this isn't the end. It's a return, a quiet return to the place where you no longer explain yourself, where your boundaries don't need banners, where your rest is your rhythm, where your solitude is your sanctuary. And if your spirit whispered yes at any moment, there's something waiting for you. A book, but not just a book, a space for the woman who's walked this entire message in silence. Choose Yourself Softly is your reflection. Not a self-help manual, not a to-do list, just a poetic breath. A soft call inward to the gentle rebel, the intuitive one, the Sigma soul who's tired of fighting for peace and ready to live it. This book doesn't ask you to be more. It holds you exactly as you are. You'll find it in the description and the first pinned comment. Not urgent, not loud. Just waiting like you've been waiting to remind you that you are allowed to be soft and clear. You are allowed to slow down and still matter. You are allowed to live by your own light without guilt, without noise, without apology. Stay true to yourself. To all the spicy ladies make life beautiful, thank you for watching and God bless.